is episode 2 of Unicorn King. I'm Matt, and I'm talking about just some of the really interesting things that came up in that. So this is the episode really centered. So if you remember, the previous episode was about Lulu. So this one was actually about, well, the main themes about it to me are about abuse. And for me, it's about the ignorance that permits abuse, that encourages abuse. It's partially about somewhat the structures that also permit abuse. And also it's kind of the more subtle things that we accept as which themselves in some ways are abusive, but also at the same time there's so many times in society that we get these obvious telltale predictors, really things that show a sign of what's to come, whether that's at a social level, whether that's in an individual level. Sometimes your friend says something and you don't know whether you should say something. Is it your place? You find a reason not to say something, but you've got that feeling or what you just heard or what you think you heard just said wasn't right in some way. I got that feeling a lot through, and it kind of escalates more and more through episode 2, which I found really fascinating. So kind of going towards the conclusion of it, what I was finding was that there was just more and more reason to go from who is this person that's just being interviewed. Often when I see an interview position or someone in a cell, I'm thinking, oh, why have they been put there? Why have they been imprisoned? Something worth concealing. And then the more as the episode progresses, really, it's more like, okay, is the interviewer going to do nothing to stop this? Is this literally just like someone stood here just proclaiming what they've done? What I found really interesting is that if you actually listen to the video, so I listened to it a few times and watched it a few times, and there's just this real lack of taking ownership for actions, which is a weird thing because it seems to go against this idea of what, a stereotypical or archetypal strong man would do. There's this idea of like absolute ownership and things like that, like someone that makes things happen. And yet there's this sense to which I think there's a real weakness which we don't really recognize, and we should really incorporate more in the male ego and male psyche. It's something that it's this weird kind of relationship, which I often see playing out in really horrible scenarios. I don't really go to clubs anymore, but a lot of my female friends speak about clubs and the kind of dynamics that pop up there. And it just sounds... abusive would be too far, but it's there's nasty manipulative power dynamics that appear when we seem to interact across gender, and there's I think a lot of it comes from insecurity. For example, often it's I can say I've had my experience with some abusive and relationships in the past, and worked out that there's these things are often co-enabling. There's an extent to which you are contributing to these things by your own behaviors, which you refuse to take ownership of, and then you might imply that the other person has a reaction, and then say that their reaction is the delegitimate. So, for example, someone feels a certain way about what you did, and you tell them they're not legitimate. They tell you that what you're doing to hurt them is wrong, and then you tell them, well, you wouldn't accept how I felt, so why should I accept how you felt? And before you know it, you're in this chaotic, horrible mess, and these things turn very quickly. But I think what I found really interesting about the video was kind of the fact that these things don't have simple answers. That's what I was kind of feeling by the end. Like I kept me like, oh, I wish it was a little bit longer, so that I could hear, I could leave with some more substantial understanding of like, was this the bad guy? Like, what did he do? Should have been kept in the cell? Things like that. But then I realized that, to be honest, it wouldn't matter how much more information I heard, unless I heard from the woman in this case on the other side of this story, and then in the other side of this video. Without hearing from her story, it's never going to be a full telling of events.
Yeah. Should I just take it off now?
Maybe that's an idea. Just get
I
it.
don't think we want it, do we?
Yeah. Let's get rid. Sorry, Mira.
Sorry, Mira.
Is it like stuck to the wall?
Yeah, it's stuck on, so it'll take me a minute, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right.
But Yeah.
I mean, if not, we'll just move you over quickly.
That tape. You know that tape that you use instead of blue tack?
Oh shit, yeah.
So there'll be like shit on the wall.
Okay, I think what we'll do instead is let's just move you along a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's enough, I reckon. Yeah. And I think, let me have a look at that again, just like from where you had held me before. Yeah, that's better. That's much better. You're holding down a key or something.
Is that me?
Yeah, it was like, were you holding down a key or something?
Yeah, sorry.
Like in my own little rave there.
You know, so I found that really fascinating. This is obviously, it kind of goes to the idea of this male gaze, right? When we keep framing the experience of relationships from the idea of so in this instance, heterosexual relationships. So in this instance, it was kind of like, at least what I was finding is that it's always from that male perspective, and in so many ways that's completely taken for granted and assumed in like when we see media. Like often if you watch your soaps, it's from a male perspective. It's thinking about the male does this. Generally, if you watch like soaps and US TV shows, things like that, Western media, it's often, we have these gender stereotypes and these gender archetypes, and they just keep being reaffirmed and reaffirmed in media. And sure, we see a lot of new media that is questioning these things, but just again and again, we're perpetuating. We speak about toxic masculinity, but there's also toxic femininity. I think, we all have mothers, we all have sisters, we all have fathers and brothers, whether those are sisters by blood, brothers by blood. We have so many people that there's too diverse a range of experience amongst all peoples. And considering how much commonality I've personally heard from my female friends about their experience of relationships, my own experience of relationships, I can see how it's possible to do real horrible things, and genuinely do real harm to people that you do care about, out of not knowing how to handle your own emotional well-being and your own emotional state. In my experience, I found that, so for example, in the video, someone's talking about, she makes me so angry. And those are words that I've said myself, like, while also saying I love her so much, but she makes me so angry. Like, that's a real thing. Because perhaps we're not teaching people enough emotional resilience, health, well-being, the things that they need to regulate. So to Natalya, the director of episode 2, well done. You smashed it. I don't know what experience you've got before, but I know there's some other great directors and some other great production teams with around you. So definitely consider how you can put more energy into this and how you can put more time into it. If this is just one of your first or earlier projects, I can't wait to see what you do in the future. To speak maybe to episode 1 then. So I worked with AI. It's something I've studied, I've researched. It's kind of my lockdown project, was just sitting on a computer and for hours, days, weeks, just trying to finally crack this AI thing, because I think we need more people shaping the landscape of AI, or else we're going to end up with the worst case. I think one of my conclusions that I've come with working with these technologies and like having ideas about, how can we use these tools for the maximum social benefit. So like I'm referring to Lulu and this AI help, kind of AI relationship, kind of. I was reading it as like an AI relationship tool. I actually was interested in these tools. They exist. This isn't, Black Mirror is real. Let's be clear about this. It's just the timescale that it's becoming real on. There are so many technologies that haven't been released to market yet, but they are real. Really interesting. To anybody, I'll sign off by saying, to anybody who watched this and was like, no way can AI do these things, it can do. Learn to code, not as a meme, but learn to code. There's a technological revolution which is literally underway.
We have a strong hunger to employ a marginalised and diverse workforce. We have Kendrick, whose first day it is.
You call up every Karen, Chloe and Amy and you tell them that just because Tyrone from the club didn't text them back does not mean that men are trash.